welcome into the podcast. It's good to have you here today.
You know what? I think you and I need to make an agreement right now that we are going to do the single best podcast of either of our lives. And if this isn't it, we quit the business.
Well, sure. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it might be a bit more challenging for you to quit,
Nope.
but no, really. Okay, so you
No.
could just give it up anytime.
Yeah, because I am what I call dependently wealthy. I can walk away. I can walk away at any time.
Well, I mean, you've done quite a bit. Of course, we're here to talk about The Crew on Netflix, but just going through your list of projects that you've done through IMDb, I mean, you've been a very active working actor for decades.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's that desire to not go totally broke that that keeps me going. No, but I realize that there's a lot of luck in this business, and I've been in some lucky places at some lucky times and met some really great people in those places. So I've been at it for a while. I was acting in Atlanta on stage and doing improv comedy with Laughing Matters and doing dinner theater back there. And then I moved out to LA in 98 and I started working. I think it was at the very beginning of my first year here that I started recurring on Malcolm in the Middle in 98.
Yeah, I remember that because that was a really popular show. I mean, I don't think at the time did most people realize that it was going to catch on like it did.
Dude, here's the crazy part. So I auditioned for it. Originally, I auditioned for the pilot for a bathroom attendant in the pilot. And then they didn't cast me. And they said, we actually want you to come back and audition for this other character's dad who's going to be a regular on the show. So then I went back and auditioned for that. But even when I auditioned for the pilot, when all the actors were sitting around in there, because it was one of those single cam comedies and no live audience, and we weren't really used to that at the time. And I remember the actors sitting around going, this is funny, this is supposed to be a comedy, right? I mean, it's funny, but I can't tell because it wasn't written like comedy pilots are written. So not only did we, I don't, somebody probably knew it was going to be big, like Linwood Boomer, the creator, but like I couldn't even tell, like, God, I hope I'm doing this a funny way. I hope this is a comedy. I hope I'm not screwing up their audition here.
That's
So
interesting. Yeah, I mean, and that was really before Bryan Cranston was Bryan Cranston,
yeah,
and just a whole lot of people got their start on that show. That was
yeah,
kind of like a gateway for a lot of actors to really get the exposure on a single camera sitcom and just sort of
yeah,
kind of have their careers launched pretty much,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, Cranston had done. I think at that time he may have done. He had done Friends, I think, but more than that, he had done some soap operas and stuff like that. He was an incredibly talented actor, of course. Like one line and you knew, like, okay, this guy's got it, and just literally one of the nicest human beings that I've ever met in my life. So yeah, he definitely used that as a great vehicle to get himself seen.
Yeah, and the thing that I like about that show in particular, it's not one that the Hollywood folks that be the powers that be have decided to try and reboot or remake. They've just kind of left it alone, which I think is nice.
Yeah, we've joked about several times. Like we all had a big get together a couple of years ago. We joked several times about having like some kind of crazy reunion of that show, which I think probably everyone there would love to do just for the weird. Like the show always relaxed comfortably in its own weirdness. You know what I mean? So I think they would kind of play upon that whole idea, anyways.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, especially I think more so during like the pandemic and when people were locked down, they were doing those reunited together type Zoom
yeah,
table reads types of things. So that
yeah.
would probably be fun to see. But
We actually did that.
okay, that's
We
right.
did we did a Zoom pilot, and since I wasn't in the pilot, I read all of the stage directions. I overacted all the stage directions. I made sure I got my due.
Yeah, there
Uh,
you go.
yeah,
That's funny.
yeah, we did that part at least, and that was great. Literally seeing everybody's faces, like some of the people I hadn't seen in forever. I see Bryan Cranston a lot. We're still in the same neighborhood. Um, but the other people like Jane Kasmerick, I hadn't seen her in I don't know when. And Frankie, I hadn't seen him in quite a while.
Yeah, I think when that show ended, they did a few things here and there, but I
Yeah.
know Frankie stopped acting for a long time and went back to school and did several different things.
Yeah,
And
even then when we were doing the show, he wanted to be a racer. Like
yeah,
he wanted to
still,
race rally
still,
sport. Yeah. So that was his big thing back then. And then
yeah.
some other people went to school. Yeah.
We actually tried getting him and we had a date set, and then he had a big race coming up that had been
Wow.
postponed due to lockdown, and that obviously took priority over us, which is fine. Everything happens for a reason. But I have to say, like, just going through everything that you've done, you have always, like most actors, or maybe not, kind of just gotten a broad experience, specifically a lot of comedies. You've done some dramas, you've done some voiceover work.
Hmm.
So you mentioned that, you came out to LA and got that show, but at what point in your career did you kind of come to the realization, okay, I've sort of made it and this is something
Pro-
that I'll do
probably
long term?
probably next month I will have that realization. I don't I don't know that whole made it deal. I will tell you that this is the crazy part. I do a lot of cartoons, a
Yes.
lot of them. And it was maybe 2 years ago. I swear to you, maybe 2 years ago, I was in a voiceover booth somewhere, and I s- I was reading, getting ready to read my stuff, and I went, "Oh my god, I'm a professional." I like realized about 2 years ago that I was a professional voiceover guy. I hadn't even thought about it. I was like, "Oh, this is something I do." Uh, so I don't know about the have made it thing. When I was living in Atlanta, I remember there was an audition. I had finally gotten into voiceover big time there. And there was an audition and it said, looking for a Gary Anthony Williams type for this commercial. And then I auditioned for it and I didn't get it because somebody in Atlanta was more Gary Anthony Williams than me. Probably that Rob Cleveland. Who knows? It was probably him back in the day. Um, but at that point, I did feel like, oh, I'm really in the voiceover community here now. My name is on an audition list, but they're not going to hire me for. So that was when I felt like I finally got into the voiceover community in Atlanta. But I don't think I've ever felt like I've made it because I'm still auditioning. I auditioned for the show we're going to talk about today as well. The Crew. I had to audition for that. Like some things I don't audition for, some voiceover jobs, like for people I've worked with a lot, it's an offer. But most of the time, I'm like right before we got on this call, I probably sent in about 10 or 11 different voiceover auditions, because I have a booth in my house now.
Wow.
Uh,
But I think though, at least it was validation on some level, right? When you see your name as a Gary Anthony type, that's kind of funny.
oh,
I've
yeah.
heard other actors say the same thing, like
It,
a Paige Davis type or
yeah.
whatever.
It's hilarious. It's even funnier that when you don't get that role that has your name on top of it. That makes it even it's it's almost as good as getting the job. When you don't get it, though they're saying they're looking for your type. It's like, call me, man. Here's my type.
You don't. Why do you need the type when you've got the real
I'm
package?
right here. That may be it. Like we're not looking for Gary Anthony Williams. Let's make this clear. No one is looking for that guy. But if you know his type, that guy we're looking for all day long.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, your personality and voice is quite distinctive. So I guess they're just really kind of maybe going somewhere in their head a different space than most
Yeah.
people might go. I don't know.
Hey man, it's all good. I don't remember what that commercial was, but I'm sure it was probably one of the most successful commercials in the world. Whoever got it is probably now the king of their own island somewhere.
Well,
And I'll get my island someday.
well, I mean, you've obviously carved out for yourself a place in this industry because, again, and not to overstate it, but you've done a lot of different things, a lot of voiceover, TV, films, The Crew, which is, I think, one of the best shows that has come out recently. And I don't just say that, but just the fact that it's just so funny and entertaining. And the cast that you are a part of is just over the top. I mean, Kevin James, I mean, the list goes on and on. It's insane.
It's fantastic to work on that show. So I will say, like, I did not know Kevin at all. We had never met, but from day one, before that, he called all the actors who, and said, "Hey, can't wait to work with you guys." And then from day one, we shoot that in Long Island. From day one, just meeting him for the first time, he made sure everybody was comfortable. And then when it came time to shoot, he said, "All right, guys, let's just keep it loose. Just keep it loose, and like, let's play." And that was like, as an improv guy, like that's all you want to hear, like that's fun times. So he made sure everybody was comfortable. And then, like you said, the rest of the cast, Dana Duke, stand-up comic who's absolutely ridiculous. And then two Broadway stars in the show, Jillian Muller and Sarah Stiles, are both either Tony winning or Tony nominated actresses, and they are both dynamite. And then Freddie Stroma, who's also in that Bridgerton. He's English. He plays an American on our show, and for the entire run, he never spoke in an English accent, even when we were all hanging out together, not shooting. The day we wrapped is when he started speaking with his regular accent again.
That is hilarious. So you mentioned Long Island because I believe Kevin has filmed a lot of his shows there. I think everything, it pretty much. There's like Gold Coast Studios or something there.
Exactly.
Okay, where he did Kevin Can Wait. And then I don't know if King of Queens shot there or not, but I mean, that's pretty cool just to have that kind of juice to get the show filmed where you live, which is a lot of fun. So
yeah, that's when you're so powerful, you can go, "Hey man, I need you to shoot this entire Netflix series in my backyard." Then you got some Hollywood or Long Island. You got that Long Island juice, bro.
Yeah, you've got the power.
I think you and I need to start making some hoodies that just say Long Island juice on them, and people.
I think that would be great. Yeah, you've got the platform. I do graphic design. I'll get in touch with your people.
Oh shoot! Here, I'm my people. Don't get in touch with the Gary Anthony Williams people type. Don't do that. Just
okay.
Straight to my people.
That's fine. We'll just go straight to you. So I'm assuming that this was filmed post-COVID or pre-COVID, mid-COVID, or a mix.
Brett, you're asking all the right questions, and you're asking them in the right tone. So we started filming January through March 13th. So that week leading up to March 13th, which was a Friday, I believe that was Friday the 13th, I believe. We were going to shoot regular with our regular audience in. And then audience members started dropping because it was in New York. That was ground zero as far as anybody knew. And then audience members started going, "I'm not coming." My buddy Brian Sack, he was like, "No, I'm taking my family upstate. We're getting out of the city." And the audience started dropping, and they're like, "Oh, we're still going to do the show." And then they said, "Well, we're just going to do the show, but without an audience." And then that Friday morning, we came in to shoot, and they said, "Okay, we're just going to shoot it all this morning. And we're going to give you guys an extra week of hiatus. You can go home for 2 weeks, and then we'll see you in 2 weeks." I thought, it'll be a month, maybe 2 months. I left all my luggage up there and my clothes and everything.
Oh, no.
2 months. And then, so that was January through March 13th. And then I went back the middle of August to finish it up. Had to be quarantined for 14 days. And when I say quarantine, it was, you're not allowed to leave your hotel room, even to walk down the hall. And we didn't even have windows that open in our hotel.
Wow.
Like, it was sitting in that hotel room for 14 days. And I went slightly nuts. I really did. It was like that. I started losing time at the end of it. But after that, we went back out. Everybody's in shields and face masks and lathered down, and finished it up without incident. We were able to finish the last 3 episodes.
Wow. And I mean, you're not the first to share that type of story. I was talking to somebody else recently, and she was telling me that she's filming a show in Canada. She had to go to one hotel in Canada just as a start for 7 days. and then quarantine in another hotel for 14 more days, being in contact with the Mounties and all of that that sort of monitor it there, and
Yeah.
then being able to go on set and film.
Yeah.
So what a crazy time. And it's interesting that you say that, because I remember a lot of people saying that, go, well, give it, I even said that, give it 2 weeks, this will all pass over. And then boom, a year or so has passed,
It's
and
unbelievable.
we're sort of seeing light at the end of the tunnel now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, where are you, Brett? Are you in
I'm in the
Atlanta?
Bay Area.
In the Bay Area, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, like here in LA now, like vaccines have really kicked up. Like a lot of my friends have gotten their vaccines, especially because those expiring ones where you can go wait in line all day and you can get vaccinated. My teenage son has been able to get vaccinated. They're trying to vaccinate teenagers and 16 and 17-year-olds as well now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so we are starting to see some light. Not to get too sciencey. If we can outrun the variants that are coming, then yeah. But back then, when this hit, like we were the first. The Crew was the first Netflix show to go back into production.
Okay.
And so they were not about to throw their money away. They were going to make sure they would have hermetically sealed us if it hadn't suffocated us, man. They were going to make sure they got their show finished, which actually just brought the cast closer together. Because when we were out of quarantine, we were all still at the same hotel, and we were the only people that we knew for a fact that were clean. That like we can't get it from each other. We hadn't seen anybody else. So it was quite an experience, and it really did bond the cast even closer together.
I can imagine, especially when, you're kind of in the middle of something and you're trying to get it done. And Netflix seems like the type of production company to me. Well, first of all, they've just really struck gold with these multi-camera, single camera sitcoms, dramas. I mean, I think it kind of started with that show, The Ranch, and then they set the
Hmm.
precedents for what could be done with a comedy, and not having it typically go to a specific network, right? Like the
Yeah,
big three, but going to Netflix and also giving us, the viewers, the opportunity to literally binge watch the entire thing
yeah,
in one setting and not have to wait a week or two or maybe 3 weeks before we got
yeah.
another episode.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the ranch, and you probably know this because Brett, I think you know everything. But
No.
the creator of the ranch is also the creator of our show, The Crew. So this is, at the very least, his second go around with Netflix, and I love it. I love the fact that they're doing the multicam comedy on there. I tend to watch more single cam stuff as far as comedy goes. But I have been surprised how many friends of mine are huge fans of multicam comedies. And even more surprised, not my friends from Georgia, which I totally expected, but other friends from out here even, who are big fans of NASCAR that I never would have known. I grew up around NASCAR growing up in the South. Um, but the guys out here who I never would have thought were NASCAR fans, that has been a real surprise to me. And I love that NASCAR is so involved. Like, they gave us our own car that actually races, in
Wow.
NASCAR races. We have real drivers, who come onto the set, and other people associated with NASCAR. They're around every day. It's great that they lend the legitimacy to it. And, give us a real nice field to play in there with NASCAR.
Yeah, that was the other part that I liked too, as somebody who's somewhat associated or familiar with NASCAR just by association, and then to have a whole show that's centered around it and really have advisors or whatever, the real deal, come in and help you. I wanted to ask you, because of the multi-camera, is it easier to get a lot more done in a shooting day versus like if you were just doing single camera, like a lot of these types of shows, like comedies or dramas that film that way specifically?
Well, it's funny. Like, hey, everybody, if you ever want to be an actor, know this: the sitcom life is the easiest TV acting life there is. Monday through Wednesday are very quick days. You go in, you have your, yep, that snap, snap, snap. You have your rehearsals, you read the script over, And then the writers make changes. The beauty of the multicam is the writers are constantly making changes, finding funnier jokes, finding funnier beats. On Thursday, you shoot a little bit, and then Friday is you shoot in the evening. They're very quick work weeks. When I was on Boston Legal, I could easily shoot a 13, 14-hour day.
Oh,
Uh,
for sure.
that's not happening hardly on any sitcom unless something weird just goes wrong. Sitcoms are
Yeah,
quick shooting, and they're quick. And for a stage actor, it's the closest to working on stage because you have a live audience there in front of you on performance days. So you
it's
know,
interesting to see how those shows work organically live. I saw, I think it was a few years ago, the Marlin show. I got to see a
hmm
taping of that. And it's surprisingly, you're there for a couple hours, but how fast the time goes in between shots. And then, of
yeah.
course, the actors coming out and interacting with the audience. Marlon, my God, he was just, I've never seen somebody with so much energy in my entire life. Just not only filming, but also, while they're doing rewrites, they might do a joke and then the audience is just kind of like, this isn't funny. So they rewrite it, retape it, and then they just keep moving along.
hmm
But I imagine for you, for someone who has the background of an improv performer, being on a comedy like this is probably great because you can be a lot more relaxed and sort of, use those magic skills as an actor and sort of meld with the cast and really just be on
Yeah.
your toes, especially if, someone is kind of in that same lane as you, if that makes any sense, like a Kevin James
Absolutely.
or whoever.
Absolutely. Kevin James, both Kevin and Dan are stand up, so they're used to the live audience. And then the other two actors, the Broadway actors, they're used to the live audience. So those nights are performance nights. And then with Kevin going, keep it loose and have fun, we throw in our own stuff. If they don't want it, they won't take it. But I think everybody's goal is to make the most fun show that they could possibly make. And the head of that for us is the director. His name is Andy Fickman, who I'd never worked with until then. Uh, he is probably the single best, not probably, he is the single best sitcom director I've ever met. Nobody keeps a set laughing and moving and fun like that dude. Like he's genuinely a funny, funny human being. He understands comedy and he understands comedic actors. He's a brilliantly funny director who really keeps the show light and moving. Even during the quarantine time, during the COVID time, he still kept it fun there, and it made everybody want to be like. You can't let the director be funnier than your show. Everybody's going to kick it up 3 notches.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, Gary, about comedic actors. I've heard this before. Really, it's just a very special skill set. It's not like, I mean, I've heard it's easy for comedic actors to do drama, but it's harder for dramatic actors to do comedy, or maybe the reverse, just because of the skill set that it takes to put that out and together,
I
right?
definitely think there's a timing thing that is hard to learn if you've been just only doing drama forever. I started out doing Shakespeare. I
Yeah.
started out on stage doing dramatic stuff. And when I was living in Atlanta, I did a lot of dramatic chase Marky Post and try to rape her. Like seriously, not joking. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did
that's a
some
big.
scary ass characters. Um, it was only when I moved to LA that it became mostly comedy because the first things I were cast in was Malcolm in the Middle and playing this goofy, crazy character on Amanda Bynes' show, The Amanda Show. So they immediately said, "Oh, he's a comedic actor," and then that's what they saw me as. Hollywood has a way of telling you who you are. Um,
Yeah, I've heard that a few times, once
yeah,
or twice from actors like yourself.
but I luckily I get to do a lot. I have a rich variety of things that I get get a chance to do. So being pegged as a comedic actor is not anything that I ever wake up crying about. That's for damn sure.
No, I mean, there's probably plenty of work to be had,
Yeah.
regardless of what the film project is or television show. I want to switch gears about the improv and talk about that. You've done
Yep.
Who's Line multiple times.
Hmm.
We've had pretty much all of the cast members from that show on our show. So about that, do you feel more comfortable in an improv situation, like when you do that sort of thing,
Yeah.
or you do? Okay.
Yeah. Like that's home for me.
Okay.
Improv is totally 100%. Like a couple of years ago, I did a pilot with David Schwimmer. We were best friends in it. I think it was an Israeli pilot they were making the American version of, but it was totally improvised, except like I knew who my character was, he knew who his was. And so we shot in New York, and like I'd shoot a day. And at the end of the day, I remember the first day I was like, so what are we shooting tomorrow? And the production company goes, we'll tell you tomorrow. After we pick you up, we'll let you know. Like nothing to worry about, nothing to think
Oh,
about, no
wow.
scene. It's like, yes, thank you for that. Same thing on what's the show with Larry David?
Curb Your
Curb Your
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm. I've only done one episode of that, but it was that same thing. Before the audition, they gave me a little slip of paper that said, Larry's going to try to get out of a ticket. Don't let him. You're the judge. And that was it. And the rest of it is
I love
yours to
it.
mess around with. So, absolutely, that's the single most comfortable place for me to be is doing improv. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard just in reading and listening to other interviews from other actors about working with him that it's very much improv, like, and I think it might be, and this is just an assumption, but for all those years doing Seinfeld and how Seinfeld was very meticulous about writing things down word for word and just having those solid scripts. And
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, him departing the show, but still having a lot of ties to it, but then coming and doing this show where it's the same type of comedy,
Mm-hmm.
observational, but not so much scripted per se,
I mean, no, you can forget the per se. It is not scripted. Like,
okay.
if you ever think there's a script going around, no, they'll have some beats, and like, all right, he goes here, and then while you're shooting it, you'll do a take, and they'll go, great. Hey, keep that thing you said about the candy, but then add in anything else you want. Okay, great. Keep that thing you said about the candy and that. Now, next time we shoot it, do whatever else you want to do. Like there was never a line written for you. Not
Wow.
one. Not one. It was all improv. Like Reno 911, same deal. They'll tell you the scene setup and then totally improvised. Yeah.
That's so, I mean, I just find that fascinating just because from an outside perspective of somebody who watches these shows and then has the pleasure of talking to folks like yourself or anybody that's involved in a project like that. And just, I guess it's a testament to your ability to act and to improv because I would imagine you have to be on your toes, just ready for
Yeah.
anything. There's no relaxing.
None at all. And Larry, in that case, like Larry loves to play. And he will just give you some weird stuff to have to deal with on set. And, I know my job is to take that weird stuff, make it look good, and then throw something weird at him that he's going to make look good. I love it, man. And Reno 911, I shot some episodes. Was that this year now? Holy crap. Whenever they just shot new episodes.
Pretty recently, I think I was
Yeah,
reading about it in one of the trades.
it was very recent. Now I'm just kind of missing, was it the end of last year or the beginning of this year? But it's that same thing, man, of I used to love watching that show and still do. It's just brilliantly funny to me. It's a great simple premise and it's the character work that makes it great. So you know basically how the character is going to react to something, but it's the surprise crap that comes out of people's mouth that give you something fun to play with.
Yeah, I think that would just be the most intriguing part about all of it in the sense of just kind of going, I don't know where this is going to land,
Yep.
but I do know that something is coming my way, right?
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
like, okay, here we go. And I've heard the Who's Line guys also say the same thing. Like when you're doing these bits like Hoedown or Broadway, You just have to really be thinking 5 or 6 steps ahead of the person to your left or right, because
I am literally the opposite of that.
really, that's
I
interesting.
don't want to think of anything until it comes to me. So I do a lot of song improv, and I used to, like, in the slow times before, when I used to have a lot of slow times. Sometimes I would teach improv, musical improv. Me and my
Really?
buddy Nick Jameson. And Nick Jameson is one of the most brilliant musical improvers I've ever met. He used to be in a band called Fog Hat back in the days. Like,
Okay.
he's an old white dude who can freestyle with any body, freestyle hip hop, any kind of song styles. Like, he can play any instrument for real, from flute to bass to clarinet to, he just plays everything, drums, he plays everything. Uh, uh, and he can just freestyle. So he and I used to teach improv music. And there's two ways to go about it. You can do that think ahead thing, or you can literally wait till the ball is in your hand and react then. That's how I prefer. Thinking ahead is just gonna, I don't want to try to make all those rhymes in my head in triplicate. I trust myself to go, when it gets to me, whatever that guy just left me with, I will be able to deal with it, and I will be able to rhyme it, and I will make it make sense, and I will pass it on to somebody else.
And it will be funny, which
And
I
it better be, or else they don't have me back.
that's, yeah, I've heard. I was asking Colin about that just kind of off air. I said, like, do you ever have guest stars on, and you, whoever makes the decision to bring them on, and then you're like, this is going to be a wild ride, and then it just doesn't quite turn out to be the way that you expected? And he's like, oh, it happens all the time, but
Yeah.
really you have no way of knowing if that's going to be the case or not until you're there, you're with an
Yeah.
audience, you have Laura Hall and everybody there to rock and roll, and then it's like, oh, okay, well,
I,
let's
rem- I
let's
remember
retape this real quick,
I remember. So here's, I don't think I've ever even told this in a podcast or anywhere. So my earliest dealings with Whose Line Is It Anyway was watching the English version long, long, long ago when it first came out. Then my buddy Nick Jameson, he and I did improv in Atlanta together with this group Laughing Matters, and we both loved doing music. He sent a tape of himself to England, saying, "Hey, I want to audition for this show," because he also has English citizenship. Then they were like, "Hey, so funny, we're about to start trying to do an American show." This is not the one they wound up doing, but they were going to try long, long ago. And they said, we're going to be in New York. We'd love for you to come up and audition and bring that black guy with you. So
Okay.
I was that black guy. So I go up and audition with him. They started out with like 30 people in the morning, and then they cut it down to, they were left with 5 of us, and then they never say anything. Like, after the 5, great, thank you guys. And then I didn't get on. They did this a couple of times, and they had me fly out to California. Start out with like 30 people, narrow it down to like 4 or 5. Thank you. I never get on. I never get on. And after a while, they kept asking me to audition, and they weren't hiring me. And so I said, nah. I told my agent, if those guys ever called, I'm not going. They called again when they came back around like 7 or 8 years ago, and I was like, hey, you know me, I'm not going to go. Those guys know what I do and what I don't do. If they want me, I'm doing a show with my comedy group, the black version, at the Groundlings. They can show up if they want. I'm not going to audition for those guys. So they showed up at the black version, and then they hired me. And
Of
then
course.
after that, the producers were like, where have you been? Why haven't we met you before? Like, you fools.
You've seen me
You've
before. You
seen me.
know who
You
Gary, you
you
know who I
you
am.
know my type, that Gary Anthony Williams type.
That's funny. I love it. A couple more questions here as we wrap. You mentioned that you're a father, which is great.
Yeah.
Does your son have any kind of interest in this business at all?
When my son was, I think he was 6, either first grade or kindergarten, he was watching his buddies on stage at his elementary school, and he leans over to me and he goes, Dad, that is exactly what I will never do. So the answer is no. He is a computer science guy.
Love it.
He's graduating this year. He's got a bunch of college offers right now, so he's deciding which one of those he's going to do. I did see his English paper the other day. He had to do a video English paper, and he's not an actor, and he's a quiet guy. And unless you're his friend, you would never know that he has a great, stupid sense of humor. You just never know because everybody sees him as straight, quiet science guy. I saw this video he made for his English class the other day, and it was like, dude, this is good. And I said to him, you know you can act, right? And he goes, yeah. And I go, you could probably do a YouTube channel like with math and science stuff. He goes, yeah, I might. So that's the only time I've ever heard him go, okay, I realize that I can actually act. But it was so totally different than anything I've seen him do because normally he's out in my guest house with a computer and 58 cameras that he set up to create some invention that, that he has an idea for.
There you go. I mean, I think it's a 50-50 wash a lot of times for most people, actors or celebrities who have kids that either they're just in or out or no interest at all,
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, he's obviously grown up around it and seen
Yep.
it, probably been with you to set, just had people in
Yep.
and out of his life. But that's great. I kind of find that really cool in the sense that people who have kids that are in the business and they just go and do something so polar opposite of what
Yeah.
mom and dad do,
Mm-hmm.
that it's just kind of like, okay, that's great,
Yeah. I love the idea that and for this would be for anyone that he's found his own thing. Like he
Yeah.
found the thing that gets him moving and motivated, that he's really interested in and interested in creating and rediscovering and kind of just making it his thing. I love that idea. Like I would never be sad that he didn't go into acting. And if he had chose to, I would never be one of those, oh, I wish you had done something else. Like, no, dude, if that's what you like, if that's what gets you going and motivated, do it. So I'm happy that he found his thing.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard other folks say in interviews before, well, as long as you know how to work and work hard and have a good work ethic, regardless of the path that you choose, that's all I can ask as a parent.
Well,
If
I don't
I
want him working hard with ethics. I don't want that. I'm sorry. That's the last thing I do. I told him, do not bring any ethics around here.
Yeah. Hilarious. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this as we wrap up. I have to say, I mean, you've done a lot of funny things. I mean, it would be hard to list one, but I will have to say Survivor Soul Plane is, to me, one of the funniest. I mean, I don't know if
That's
you've Googled
great.
that at all, but there's
I
just like a
haven't
whole
seen that in
YouTube
years.
video. It's like just dedicated to that song.
I have not.
Hilarious, my
No, I
friends.
haven't.
Hilarious.
Let me tell you, may I quickly tell you about my first day on the set
Please do. I
of
would
Soul Plane?
die to hear this story.
So, first day on the set, and I'm working with the other flight attendants who are Sofia Vergara and Angel Conwell.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and it was one of those things I've said to my girlfriend recently. Like she was like, it's me and the two of them, and I play Flame, the flaming gay flight attendant. And Angel is like grabbing her booty meat and shaking. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm just trying to make sure I have enough jelly back there. I'm trying to decide if I want to put on more jelly, something that I don't know any white woman ever saying, right? I'm trying to see if I want to put on more jelly. I was like, okay. And then, like, this first day we meet, and she's just absolutely funny and just a cool person. And then Sofia Vergara, and we're talking, and I was like, we haven't met. I knew of Angel, I didn't know Sophia at all. She's like, I'm Sophia. I'm pretty famous. Like she said one of those things. I was like, okay, Sophia. She's like, no, I'm a pretty big deal where I'm from. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then so we're doing dance rehearsal, and then we step out for lunch, and all of the guys working on the crew, the Latin dudes, were Sophia, Sophia, hey, Sophia, Sophia. And she just looks at me and she goes, I told you I was famous. She was so absolutely cool. So that was the first day. And then they come to me and they go, "Oh, we got to shoot a scene of yours today." I was like, "Dude, I don't even start working for 2 more weeks. I'm just in dance rehearsals now, working on that song, Survivor. Like, I'm in dance rehearsals for 2 weeks. I don't start shooting for 2 weeks." And they said, "Oh, yeah, either you'll make it up, or they'll write something for you on the set." Like, what? And that was when I was like, "Okay, this movie is going to be wild." Like, I'm not even supposed to be working today, and I'm shooting a scene that's either going to be made up on the spot, or some writers are going to just go quickly write me a scene right then. It was absolutely nuts, man.
Yeah.
And Sophia and I haven't seen her in a while now, but we were tight for a long time. I would see her. I accidentally saw her naked once, and I ran. It was horrible. I froze like a 6-year-old boy.
I'm
She was
sure.
she was on the set of this show called Eve, and I was working next door with Monique. And Monique was like, "Oh, Sophia's next door on Eve. If you want to go say hi." I was like, "Yeah." So I go to say hi to her. She was on stage. She's like, "Gary," and then she runs backstage. And I think she's running backstage to see me, and I run around the corner. And she was getting undressed. She was in a costume change. But for some reason, Sofia Vergara has to totally get naked to change clothes, I guess. And I ran around, and she was naked in front of me, like literally just changing clothes. And I literally froze, and I turned around and I ran to my car and drove home. Like, I had never had that reaction before. I was like, I hope she didn't see her. I hope she didn't think I was trying to sneak around. I just felt like horrible, and I couldn't even speak. I just ran away.
I love it. And that is a perfect way to wrap up. I feel like we met our goal that we set out for in the beginning, if not more. Be sure to watch The Crew on Netflix and all the other things that Gary has done. Gary, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brett. Really nice talking to you, brother.